So I think I'm going to have to leave the MBTI world behind. I mean, 4 letters to describe a whole human being? I'm going to need like 5 traits? Wait, don't tell me that's a thing. Jeffrey here with Auto Alchemy, and today I'm going to be doing something a little more casual. Um, I've been inspired by Pukoki's Big Five Aspect Scale um, video that I saw earlier today, and I remembered that I had also taken the Please Understand Me test probably almost a year ago. I don't quite remember how long it's been, so I only dimly recall what I scored. Like, I can probably map out, like, I know that I'm high in openness, but I don't really remember how all of the traits interrelate. So we're going to walk through that, and I actually already have it pulled up on my screen. Okay, here we go. So one thing that I really like about this one is that it divides the Big Five traits into subcomponents, and I don't think that I've seen that in any other Big Five test. I could be wrong. I do have like a really dim recollection of this very dry looking um, equivalent test somewhere out there, but I'm not sure that compassion and politeness was part of it. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, I'm trying to skip over all of the prefatory remarks. So, as we can see here, I am in the 80th percentile with agreeableness, and I think that that's actually so if you are agreeable, you are compliant, nurturing, kind, naively trusting, and conciliatory. That's definitely accurate. I think the only disagreeable trait that I see here is skepticism. And I'm not really as skeptical as I used to be. I was pretty much completely harshly critical and cynical of every statement that I encountered like a few years ago, but I've tried to refine my approach to things a little bit so that I'm always approaching people from a place of seeking common ground. I just don't want to play belligerent that belligerent game of of locking horns with another person. I don't really think that that cultivates any sense of cooperation, or I don't think it accomplishes anything. I think that it just gives you a big head, and as you can see, my head's already fairly big, so people who are high in agreeableness are seen as cooperative, warm, and considerate. I think that people probably see me that way. So one interesting thing that I'm noticing right now that I don't think I've conceptualized before is that I am no, so I think that obviously the 80th percentile is pretty good. Like, I was kind of a perfectionist in school, and if I received an 80 on an assignment, I would be like, yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly earning high marks in agreeableness, but I'm doing okay. But also, you kind of have to keep in mind that men tend to be more disagreeable. So I'm really curious because it says here that the mean percentile for men in a general population is 38.5, and yeah, 80 is almost double that. And if I understood statistical analysis a little bit more, I could probably somehow suss out where I would fall on that particular curve. um, because what that is implying, I think, is that I would be higher than 80, the 80th percentile, if compared to a population of other men around my age or in general. I don't know. So the subcomponents are fairly even. 72nd percentile for compassion and 81st percentile for politeness, according to where did it go? Apparently these two different components are predictors of political leanings, and I don't really know that this applies to me. So I do think that the description of compassionate people as being I lost it. But yeah, overall this tracks for me. I've actually told friends pretty often that I have a maternal instinct, and I mean, that's an exaggerated way of saying it, but I definitely like to care for people and care for things. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to me, but I was treated fairly unkindly at a lot of different junctures in my life, and so it just means, well, even though I know that there are drawbacks to being too agreeable, I like to give other people a space to be heard, because for a while I literally was not heard, and I'll probably get into that in another video. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I am striving to provide people with the kind of nurturing that I want and have wanted historically. And that can be a problem every now and then, because there are definitely people who just don't want to be tended to in that way. They feel like it's infantilizing, and I swear I just saw that word in here, but I can't find it anywhere. So yeah, overall agreeableness is looking pretty solid. I could probably benefit from learning a little bit about assertiveness, but hey, part of the reason I have my channel is so that I can acknowledge these underdeveloped, atrophied sides of myself, and then have sort of a sense of public accountability where I can work on them, and you guys can see me flourish. Ooh. I don't remember conscientiousness being this low. I am apparently in the 15th percentile. Conscientiousness measures obligation, attention to detail, hard work, persistence, cleanliness, efficiency, and adherence to rules, standards, and processes. Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't care all that much about order, although I do think that I'm a hard worker, and I honestly think that I was probably in a pretty low state whenever I took this test. So when you're sapped of energy in that depressive headspace, you definitely don't want to do any of the things that I just mentioned. So I'd like to imagine that I would be probably somewhere below average in this domain, but at the same time, better than 15th percentile. The weird thing is that I am a hard worker. It just depends on how you conceptualize work. So I'm obviously devoting some time and attention to my YouTube channel. I completed a novel in the past year. I've written numerous short stories. I'm looking at my short story progress tracker chalkboard, and yeah, I find it really easy to work on things that I find of importance. It's not like I'm just playing around on the internet all the time. That's not really remotely interesting to me, and I do feel like I'm wasting my time, and I don't allow myself to relax very much. So it's just really hard for me. I've always struggled with the concept of conscientiousness because I guess I've always felt like I was being commanded or ordered to do work that wasn't of value to me. And so obviously you're not going to put in that effort. Like nobody wants to, well, I don't want to say nobody, but it's hard for me to fathom being someone who would want to adhere to rules simply because they're rules. I think that there's a really dangerous element in that. So, yeah, that is my conscientiousness score. Subcomponents. So, industriousness is at 14th percentile. I'm a little bit ashamed here. I think that I've improved a lot in the last year. I would like to take this again, actually, but I think that you're not really supposed to because this is sort of a legitimate psychological, um, let's just say a legitimate psychological endeavor, and the idea is that you only take it once and then you are compared to the other population. So it would somewhat warp the data if I took it again, and I don't really think that it would warp it that much, but yeah, maybe I'll take some other Big Five test online because I don't really want to pay for this again. I don't remember how much it was, but I would say like 20 bucks, 25, somewhere in that range. And hopefully there's some way for me to get a genuine comparison between this and whatever else is out there. So let's see. People who are low in industriousness put off responsibilities, concentrating more on fun, worry, relationships, excitement, or creative endeavor. I guess I could kind of see that because being high in agreeableness, and also I'm pretty sure I'm high in openness. I don't know which one I'm more high in. I didn't actually, yeah, I just realized that these are all corresponding to the other Big Five elements. So fun would obviously be extroversion, worry would be neuroticism. Well, maybe yeah, I think that's right, more or less right. And I don't think that I need to be supervised excessively, but anyway, yeah, so if you only have so much psychological energy, and I am putting a lot of energy towards openness and agreeableness, it makes sense that I wouldn't be as industrious as I could be. I am aspiring to be a little more industrious because there's no real point in being an aspiring creative individual and then not have the drive to implement your creative designs. Like for me, the creative effort is an end in itself, but I also have to live and I have to make money. So I would like to find some way of turning my creative energy into a self-sustaining enterprise. A little better in orderliness, 25th percentile. It says here that we are neither disturbed nor disgusted by mess and chaos. They tend simply not to notice such things. Non-judgmental in their attitudes. Yeah, that's fair. I do try to use lists a little bit and routines. Again, this is another area where I think that I've grown in just in the past year, and I would be interested to see if I could take this from a blank slate, what I would look like. I will say this, so I don't like cleaning at all, but mess does bother me a little bit, and I think, so I mean, I've had roommates who were less than ideal on that front, and well, I guess even if I'm low in these dimensions, I've lived with people who were like even lower, bottom of the barrel when it comes to cleanliness. So I have been the person to get maybe irrationally frustrated at cleaning up someone else's mess because they would never get to it, and eventually I've noticed it and I'm going to have guests or whatever. And maybe that's another area where I could stand to be a little more assertive and disagreeable. But yeah, so having had that experience of being the person who gets fed up and cleans up someone else's mess, I now am pretty intentional about not putting someone else in that position. And that's a way that I think that we can leverage our different traits in order to accommodate for our weaknesses. Being so agreeable, I can motivate myself to clean if I think of it as being like either I'm doing someone else a favor or I am somehow saving someone else from future discomfort. And the same could be said for openness. This is a bit of a stretch, but if I am more inclined to clean up after myself if I throw in some earbuds and I listen to a podcast or something. So that's what I mean by trying to leverage your traits in order to accommodate for the weaker dimensions of your personality. I feel like this is all over the place as far as like political predictiveness, because I think that being high in politeness, yeah, is more correlated with being conservative, but then the industriousness, there's no way that that is in alignment with the general conservative psyche. So extroversion, very low. Now, this is kind of a wrench in the gears for my whole ENTP theory, but I think that you also have to keep in mind that extroversion in the MBTI sense isn't exactly the same dimension that's being measured with the big five, although there's probably a lot of overlap. And let's see. Oh, okay. So yeah, fourth percentile, I would be I would be more extroverted than four people in a room for a room of 100. And I mean, I know that that's what percentile means, but that just makes it really vivid. I don't think that's right. There's no way that can be right. I feel like I'm probably more extroverted than 30 people in a room of 100. Anyhow, there is a definition here that I do think pushes against the stereotype of extroversion. So it's a measure of general sensitivity to positive emotions such as hope, joy, anticipation, and approach. So you could imagine someone who's an introvert in the MBTI sense who is either processing the world through introverted sensing or introverted intuition, who is nevertheless hopeful and who experiences a lot of joy. I'm definitely not all that enthusiastic or talkative, but I am growing again in that area. I do tell jokes and I do try to make people laugh, so maybe this is once again reflective of the nihilistic atmosphere of my mind whenever I first took it. It says here that I'm possibly somewhat pessimistic about the past, present, and future only if I let myself think about them, which is why I don't. I'm actually pretty optimistic about the future, but I do get stubborn sometimes, so if I ever am expressing some kind of negative, anticipatory remark and someone fights me, then I just push back so hard. I just want to be right, which is a disturbing self-fulfilling attitude, and I don't want to think about that right now. Keep things to themselves, not self-disclosing. That's actually true, and I'm trying to be better about that. That's once again another reason that I wanted to make a YouTube channel. I said in one of my videos that I hope that it unifies my inner world and my outer world. Public speaking do not appeal to these people. That is absolutely true. I do, so in my current position, I've been leading trainings, and the class sizes are usually anywhere from like 1 person to 7 people, and 3 is really pushing it for me. If I have 3 people in the room, then I feel like I can personally connect with each of them. But if you go anywhere beyond that, it's like, what is that concept of something about crow epistemology, where a crow can only count to like 3 and then it becomes many. They don't really have this ability to discriminate between, oh, I wonder if that's where counting crows got their name. Anyway, yeah. You put 3 people in a room and then you add 1 more, and I just see a swarm that I suddenly have to educate. I have to be responsible for their acquiring the right knowledge to do their jobs. That's a lot of pressure. Like, that's, you want me to teach an infinite number of people? Good luck with that. Low in enthusiasm. Yeah. Again, man, being medicated has really thrown these off, because I'm almost kind of like a needy puppy. I just moved in with a couple of good friends, and I often just plant myself in the living room in my own personal chair, and I just sit in their presence. And I think that I annoyingly will chime in with a detail for my day, or want to talk about something that I saw on the internet. And yeah, I can be solitary, although it's more like a hermit accepting his fate. There is a strong element of my personality that craves connection and craves engaging other people and entertaining other people. But, well, it's coming out. It's definitely coming out. And then I'm very low in assertiveness. So, 9th percentile, I am not a take charge type. I can't even fathom being that, because I don't know if it's humility or if it's lack of self-esteem, but I almost always assume that I am the least competent person in the room, and the person who doesn't know anything compared to the other people in the room. And when I do think that I might know more than other people in the room, I don't think that I can contend with the arrogant and assertive yet wrong or misguided people in a group. So even if I think that I know more, if somebody tries to challenge me, I don't really feel all that able to articulate why I should be the one in the leadership role. And I think that that's a leadership trait, being able to persuade people of that. And I'm actually really grateful for this one, because I know that I used to be a lot more neurotic, and doing some Vipassana meditation has really helped me, actually. Shout out to my Zafu. Bling, bling, bling. Ooh, looks a little gross. I hope you can't see that. Yeah. So, even when I've been really depressed, I don't think that I feel a lot of pain or sadness. It's kind of situational. Like, there have been moments where it just swells inside me, and it's like this machine hum of anguish in the background that is like constantly throbbing and drilling into my psyche. And that is painful in some way, and that I want to avoid it. I find it something to deflect. But beyond that, depression for me is usually more so about just sort of a flat level of emotional experience. Everything has kind of been defanged and desaturated. So people with low levels of neuroticism tend not to focus on negative elements or uncertainties of the past, present, and future. They have times when they are unhappy, anxious, and irritable, especially when facing a serious and sustained problem. I've had my share of sustained problems, but generally they cope well, don't worry too much, and recover comparatively quickly when stressed. They are pretty good at keeping their head in a storm and tend not to make mountains out of molehills. Higher than average levels of self-esteem. See, I feel like my information is so conflicting. I don't know what to make of it. I also don't know if this is a trait that actually has, like, for something like agreeableness versus disagreeableness, you can kind of see what value you can extract from either side of that. But I'm not exactly seeing the value of neuroticism. High neuroticism. Obviously there's value in having low neuroticism. So withdrawal, moderately low. So tend not to be impeded by anticipatory anxiety. Yeah, I actually have a large level of social anxiety, but I don't have anticipatory anxiety in the same way that a lot of people I know do. I used to, but at some point I just learned to turn it off. Like my best friend, he will experience anticipatory anxiety for like weeks out from an event. And I don't know that this is necessarily healthy or adaptive behavior, but I've just learned to completely shut off anything but what's like immediately surrounding me if I want to. And so I will feel anticipatory anxiety the day of, maybe not even like 30 minutes before. And I think that I feel it all at once, as opposed to like a small trickle of dread. So that's why I say that I don't know if it's good for me. Relatively low volatility. Yeah, I've had my moments of anger, and I would say like losing my composure, but it's pretty rare, and I find it a little bit unnerving when I'm around other people who bristle like that. And yeah, I tend to find anger, I'm pretty ashamed. Like I punched a few holes in walls whenever I was a kid meaning like 13, and yeah, that's like a part of myself that I disowned in a way. And yeah, there's probably some utility in it. Like I've also fought off bullies out of anger, and I think I could tap into that again. But in general, if I do express any anger, it's not like I get self-righteous about it. I almost immediately will say, God, I was being an idiot and I'm really sorry, and this is such a disgusting feeling of boiling in my own skin. So can we leave this behind us as quickly as possible? Okay, I'm running a little long, so I'm going to wrap this up. Openness to experience, very high, 89th percentile. I actually had been hoping to at least be in the 90th percentile, but that's ridiculous. Yeah, I think that This is me to a T. I am very concerned with literature and philosophy, and the majority of my thinking is abstract, which I am grateful for an opportunity to talk about things that are a little more tethered to the earth and to lived reality. Novelty is important to me. I don't really seek out cultural events as much, and I think that's what has held me back a little bit. That's what has resulted in me scoring lower than I kind of expected to. I'm usually likely to enjoy writing. Yes, I am very driven to write. I'm very committed to that particular pursuit. Reader with broad range of interests. Sorry, I was reading two sentences at once. Wide interests and broad vocabulary. Yeah, you've probably noticed that at various points throughout this video and my other videos, I sound like an android who's gargling a thesaurus. But I try to tone it down. Not that I try to tone it down, but it feels more, I'm learning what I don't know how to put it, but I'm trying to focus on what feels natural without actively restraining myself. And I'm never trying to like flaunt my peacock feathers or anything. Do have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. Oh, that's disappointing. This would be a test that I failed if it was in the 67th percentile. So what exactly does intellect mean? See, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was just shutting out the world and shutting out my curiosity whenever I took this, because I do like to tackle and solve problems. I always like having something that I can be working on. I do like to learn new things. Whatever. I feel like I'm being a little bit defensive. And then, oh, okay, yeah, so 95th percentile as far as actual openness goes. Love beauty, require an outlet for their creative ability. Yeah. I don't see anything here that I particularly object to. It can be difficult to transform creativity into money. Yeah, I could see that. And my mom could see that. And my dad could see that. And, well, my whole family would probably weigh in on that one. Yeah, so I really wish that I could take this again, but I don't think I want to mess with the methodology, so I think I'll do a follow-up video. I'll find whatever the equivalent or the best alternative is for the Big 5 aspect scale, and we will revisit this in the near future. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in.